Taylor Hayes doesn't send a save the date. She fires a flare. She sets Los Angeles buzzing with a European faux wedding that looks like a handfasting and reads like a referendum. A made-for-cameras commitment ceremony engineered to force Ridge Forrester to declare himself in public after the Italy incident turned private doubts into a global talking point. No license, no courthouse, no loopholes. Just vows, rings, a cord to bind 2 wrists for 1 symbolic minute, and a guest list stacked with family, rivals, and influencers who know how to turn one clip into 1,000 think pieces. The point isn't legal. The point is clarity under lights that don't lie. Taylor's message is simple and impossible to dodge. Stand next to me, speak now, and put Italy to bed. Brooke Logan hears the announcement and calls it for what it is, a pressure play wrapped in tradition. She doesn't flinch at the branding, she flinches at the tactic. European is a lace veil over an ultimatum, and she knows it. She also knows Ridge. When emotion surges and an audience leans in, he treats hesitation like a sin. Steffi Forrester plants herself at her mother's side before the florist even picks a palette, defending the ceremony as empowerment, as a woman taking control of her story, as the anti-Brooke move that finally resets decades of triangle whiplash. If the internet wants a narrative, Steffi will give them one. Taylor rises, Brooke manipulates, Ridge wavers, and this ritual snaps him out of it. Hope Logan doesn't even get a say before she becomes collateral. Talk show chairs turn into benches in a courtroom where she's compared to her mother, cast as Brooke 2.0 by strangers who haven't met her. One Sharon calls her Hope against Hope, another slaps up a split screen of Brooke's scandals beside Hope's stumbles, and a panel purrs about the Logan women repeating cycles like it's a gene. Hope doesn't chase cameras. Cameras chase her through FC hallways and down to the parking lot, asking whether she endorses Taylor's European plan or plans to back her mother's pushback. The spectacle is not noise, it's pressure that wraps around Ridge's chest until breathing becomes a decision. Taylor handles logistics like a general. She reworks the FC atrium into a chapel without pews, softening the stone with greenery and low light that turns metal into glow. She picks a string quartet and not a DJ. She chooses a vow structure rooted in history so no one can call it a novelty. A Celtic cord for the binding. A pair of rings in Forrester-designed boxes. Printed words on thick stock that will outlive any headline. The guest distribution is surgical. Forrester family in rows 1 and 2, press elbows back, but microphones on, the design team present in sleek black, and a handful of clients who love a front row seat to romance as a brand. The run of show is down to the minute. Processional intentions, handfasting, personal vows, exchange of rings, a simple kiss, and a statement from the groom that Taylor insists on calling the choice. She says it with a smile. Everyone hears the steel under it. Ridge hates the word groom because it feels like a trap when there's no license, but he doesn't argue. He signs off on the quartet, offers notes on the lighting like it will save him, and compartmentalizes the way only a Forrester can, design on one side, heart on the other, crisis management running down the middle like a zipper he keeps pulling up and down. Eric raises a brow and warns him that vows spoken into a microphone don't evaporate. Thomas leans in with sketches for a linen suit that will photograph like a promise. Steffi runs comms around Taylor like a perimeter, swatting at gossip with curated leaks that favor her mother. Brooke counters with one interview that doesn't scorch but doesn't bend. She calls the ceremony lovely in theory and reckless in practice, then pivots to the only sentence that matters. If Ridge needs a stage to say he loves Taylor, he does not love Taylor enough. It lands like a pin on a map. Hope begs off commentary, but her silence becomes its own headline, so she crafts one careful post about respecting boundaries, healing from scrutiny, and refusing to be measured against anyone's past. It gets clipped, misread, and overlaid on a shot of Brooke walking past FC's glass doors for contrast. The Italy footage is the ghost in every room. There was a kiss. There was a cliff. There were camera phones, brand accounts, and angles that made everyone into a director. The public narrative settled fast. Brooke moved first, Ridge responded. It gave Team Taylor a clean villain and Ridge a passive role he could live with. Except that's only one angle, and angles are the currency of this era. On the morning of the ceremony, Taylor confirms the talking points, Ridge practices the cadence of "I choose this," and Steffi coordinates entry times so Brooke never crosses the aisle while vows are in play. Security tightens, a tech team installs a large screen. Not for spectacle, Taylor says, but for a montage celebrating the journey. The irony is sharp and no one tastes it yet. Seats fill. The quartet plays a line that makes even skeptics sit straighter. Taylor steps out in a gown that refuses to imitate a wedding dress, but takes its power structured, minimal, elegant. A neckline that says modern and a silhouette that says timeless. Ridge wears something Thomas swore would communicate present tense. The cord is knotted and ready, ivory against wood. Steffi smiles like a PR director who just watched her best pitch go viral. Brooke arrives without an entourage, cool as flint, knowing every camera will swing. Hope takes a seat 4 rows back, not hiding, not inviting. Eric, Donna, Katie, Carter, Zend, a scattering of models and buyers. FC looks like a family company, not a boardroom, and that's the point. The officiant calls them forward. Hands join. The binding begins. Taylor speaks first and speaks clean. Present tense, accountability, gratitude, no mention of Italy beyond a single line about storm survived. She doesn't wobble. She doesn't beg. She declares. Ridge nods like a man grateful for a well-built bridge. His turn. He opens his mouth. And then a screen behind them flickers, not with the montage, but with an alert, a cut, a countdown. Someone in tech swears. The lights don't drop, but the air does. A new clip fills the frame. Italy again, the cliff again, but the camera is lower and closer, an angle no one saw because the first video drowned it out. The room forgets to breathe. In this cut, the approach is clear. Ridge leans first. You can see the tilt, the shoulder, the hand that finds Brooke's elbow. Brooke's mouth opens in surprise. Her hand comes up to steady, not pull. She doesn't lunge. She doesn't lure. She meets him halfway only after he has already crossed the line. There's no audio beyond wind and distant voices, but body language is loud enough to strip varnish. A beat later, she breaks the kiss and says something the wind doesn't carry. He looks dazed. She looks afraid of the consequence. The clip is short but surgical. It doesn't argue, it shows. The room fractures in silence. Steffi's jaw sets. Eric's head drops. Thomas stares like a craftsman watching a seam split. Hope goes still, and then looks down like a prayer. Brooke stares at the screen once, then at Ridge, then at Taylor, then smooths her face into a calm that reads as earned. Taylor doesn't spin. She turns to Ridge and gives him the only out that isn't an out, tell the truth. No ceremony can proceed through a lie, and she knows it. Ridge swallows, looks at the screen again, and nods. He takes the mic, and for once he doesn't riff. He says the words that crush the script and set a new one. I moved first. No explanation can blunt it, but he offers context because the room deserves it. He was flooded by history. He read signals he wanted to be there. He thought he was saving something. He made a choice that looked like a reflex. He doesn't blame Brooke. He doesn't blame the moment. He takes the weight and lets it settle on his own shoulders. Taylor doesn't rescue him from the silence. She stands steady, not humiliated, not forgiving, just alive to reality. This is the point of the ritual. To get the truth on the record where spin can't rewrite it. The officiant looks at Taylor, looks at Ridge, looks at the screen where the image has frozen on two faces that each tell a story. Procedure is useless. Choice is the only next step. Steffi moves first from the audience with a mic handoff that says close ranks, but Taylor doesn't take it. She has one more line to deliver before the ceremony either continues or dies. You said you would choose in the light. Choose. It isn't rage. It's clarity hard enough to cut. Brooke shakes her head once, not at Taylor but at fate, and folds her hands. Hope tries to make herself smaller, so she isn't a target for a camera looking for a Logan reaction shot. Ridge understands what he's been asked to do. He reached for a ritual to postpone a reckoning. The ritual has sharpened it instead. He could punt. He could say he needs time. But the clip behind him turned time into a weapon, and he refuses to use it that way. He chooses. He turns to Taylor first, because respect demands it. He says he loves her, he says he respects her, he says he wanted the ceremony to be a line in the sand. And then he says the one sentence that rearranges the room, I can't bind my hand to yours today for the wrong reason. He turns to Brooke and does not offer a victory lap. He says he is not choosing her because of a video. He is choosing honesty about what his heart did on that cliff and what it still does when she is near. He says he won't sign his name to a promise built to defy physics. The quartet doesn't play. There is no swell. There is a sound like a company splitting breath, whispers, a sliding of chairs as people choose where to plant themselves. Team Taylor freezes into a wall. Steffi's eyes ignite, and her voice turns into ice as she tells Ridge he has just handed every Logan a claim to FC's soul. Team Brooke breathes for the first time in weeks. Donna's hand finds Eric's. Katie is already counting reputational costs and plotting triage. Hope lifts her head and meets her mother's eyes across a wedge of hostility, and for 1 second the room is just mother and daughter surviving a storm together. Taylor says thank you for the truth, and the gratitude costs her, but she pays it. Then she steps off the platform, not running, not breaking. It is Brooke who refuses the optics of triumph. She does not climb the steps. She does not kiss a man who just told the world he still loves her. She stays where she is and lets Ridge feel the weight of choosing without receiving a prize. The aftermath isn't a montage, it's immediate fallout that lights every fuse inside FC. The design floor becomes a map with flags in 2 colors. Old grudges wake up. Contracts are suddenly moral statements. A Forrester gown becomes a proxy for a family vote. Buyers whisper about integrity. Social feeds slice the room into Team Truth and Team Tradition, hashtags push engagement to toxic, and the brand's global DMs flood with customers who want to know whether the House of Forrester stands for love or for optics. In the vacuum of calm leadership, the board makes a reactive move. Stabilize the optics by installing a single CEO with full authority to set messaging, manage risk, and stop the bleeding. Eric doesn't have the stamina for the daily knife fight. Steffi wants the chair and has a case, competence, vision, a decade of earned wins, but the board reads the room and sees a conflict of interest with a fresh wound. They hand Ridge the gavel because he is the face in the crisis and because the image of a man taking responsibility plays as accountability in markets that care about narrative as much as numbers. It is not a coronation. It is a sentence to a storm. Ridge's first acts as CEO are not sexy, and they are not soothing. He freezes external comms for 24 hours, pulls PR into a war room, and drafts a statement that does not spin. We value truth, even when it hurts. We lead with honesty, especially when it costs. He greenlights a capsule initiative that puts artisans and craft on camera instead of family drama, hoping to flood the zone with work that can't be argued with. He offers Taylor the respect of a private meeting before any press conference and offers Brooke the same, but he makes one thing clear to both: FC cannot be a battleground with dresses pinned to banners. Steffi hears wait where she wanted charge, and the chill between them goes boardroom cold. She doesn't sabotage, she sharpens. She demands clear lanes, insists on product timelines, pushes projections like they're lifelines, and makes it known that any special collection that smells like Brooke by Forrester will face a data wall. Thomas watches the fracture and retreats into design where he has control. Zen takes the temperature and keeps his head down. Carter preps briefs, because HR is about to live in arbitration. Donna and Katie become unofficial liaisons between rooms that won't sit together unless someone puts coffee down first. Brooke resists being weaponized. She turns down a primetime tell-all and records a quiet piece about accountability that doesn't name names. She refuses to let hope be dragged for clicks. She walks her daughter through a bullpen of cameras with a hand on her back and a face that says, "You don't owe anyone a scene." Hope herself changes the conversation by launching an internal wellness pilot for FC staff, access to counseling, social media boundaries, a company policy that acknowledges public shaming as a workplace hazard. It's practical, humane, and impossible to slam without looking heartless. The fashion calendar doesn't stop to bury anyone. Pre-fall has fittings. Winter has fabric orders. The atelier hums while the top floor burns. Ridge sits at his new desk and learns what it means to lead a company that is also a family, that is also a storyline. Every memo he signs is parsed for subtext. Every runway choice is read as a love letter or a confession. He leans into work because work doesn't argue back, but even work can't mute the weight of the choice he made on a stage with a cord and a camera. He made the right call for truth and the worst call for peace, and he will pay both costs. Taylor does not hide. She shows up for her surgical precision follow-through and refuses to let anyone pity her. She eats in the FC cafeteria instead of retreating to a salon, making it clear that shame is not hers to carry. She thanks staff who supported her and treats staff who didn't with the same professional respect. She takes meetings with the clinical calm that made her name. But she also has one agenda item she will not let slip, and she doesn't bury the lead when she gets her first private moment with Ridge post-ceremony. She has something to ask him, and she asks it in the tone of a woman who built the platform that made the truth possible. If there had been no second angle, no leak, no screen, would you have tied that cord? It is not a trap. It is the logical next question after public honesty. The counterfactual that tells her whether she lost to reality or to optics. Ridge doesn't answer fast because speed would be cowardice in a different outfit. He looks at her like the whole day is a mirror and says he doesn't know, then corrects himself. He thinks he would have tried, and it would have been wrong, and the ceremony would have cracked under the weight of the lie inside it. It is the worst consolation prize and the best proof that her gambit worked. She forced truth into daylight. That was the mission. That is still the win, even if it isn't the one she wanted to toast. Steffi absorbs that, weaponizes it as resolve, and moves to protect her mother's dignity at scale. She floats a Women Who Lead showcase built around Taylor's foundation work, positions FC as a patron of healing, and dares anyone to reduce that to a footnote in a romance saga. Brooke refuses to be the antagonist in someone else's redemption arc. She stays in her lane: work, family, boundaries. And lets the internet foam without feeding it. Hope becomes the unexpected center of gravity by embodying the behavior everyone claims to want. She stops comparing, stops defending, and builds something useful in the middle of the mess. The audience, always the silent third partner in every relationship on this show, watches a rare thing: accountability that sticks. The leaked Italy angle didn't end a story. It ended a delusion. The cord on that stage never tightened because truth cut it first. Ridge's choice split FC into factions not because people love teams, but because people hate ambiguity, and he erased it in one sentence. The board handed him the CEO chair to steady the ship, and he accepted knowing it would be a storm season with no calm seas on the calendar. The company will survive because the product will sing. The family will survive because they've survived worse. The audience will keep tuning in because the stakes are clear and the moves are clean. No grand speeches about destiny. No metaphors about circles closing. Just a man who kissed first. A woman who demanded clarity. Another who refused to take a victory lap. A daughter who turned a PR war into a program. And a CEO term born in fire. And tomorrow, When the quartet is back in its cases and the cord is folded into a drawer that isn't a coffin, Taylor will knock on Ridge's door again, not to rehearse old fights, but to ask the next necessary question about work, about boundaries, about whether honesty will be policy or performance from here on out. The preview writes itself. Taylor has something to ask Ridge again. And now he knows there is no safe answer, only a right one, delivered without a stage, in a room where no screen can save him and no angle can lie for him.